these people.
Uther.
You're a winner. You got the gift. Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
If you ain't first, you're last.
See you when you're grown up.
Dad! Go back!
Let's get salty!
Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video. Before we get into the topic of the video, just a reminder, we're just a few hundred subs away from the big 25k milestone, so if you haven't hit that sub button yet, please do. I would appreciate it. But today's topic of the video is how in the heck did we get to where we're at? If you don't remember, like a year ago during Ashes of Outland, Paladin was like the worst class in the game, arguably alongside Shaman. It was just dreadful. People were like, buff it, do something about it, Paladin is awful. Fast forward to now, where we're at, it is at Demon Hunter levels of broken in terms of win rate. You look here at the H's replay statistics, it's across all ranks, it's just dominating. You look at the meta and like High Legend, it's doing really well. You look at the Vicious Syndicate report, it's doing incredibly well. It's busted. So how do we get from it being such a bad, underperforming class to where we're at now? And I guess what should be done about it? Well, let's go through it. Let's go through a year-long history of Paladin. First, we start off with Ashes of Outland. It's the standard rotation. Paladin has lost Shirvala OTK Paladin. That was like the main deck it was using. It had like Timeout, Shirvala, Baleful Banker, would utilize that combo. That was all gone. What they had left was like this pure Paladin package left, where you can get like your True Silver or some 5 random Paladin cards, but that was basically what they were left with, was this janky pure Paladin thing, and then you were left with some Murloc stuff. And the big thing that was introduced in Ashes of Outland was the Libram package. All these Libram cards were given to Paladin. That was going to be their archetype to make them competitive again. Basically like brute forcing an entire archetype. You gotta play all these Libram cards and they're gonna come together and be good. But they weren't. Even with the power of like Liadrin and the refill you could get, it just was very underwhelming. Coupled with the release of Demon Hunter being the most broken thing ever in Hearthstone history, Paladin just couldn't compete. And despite like a myriad of nerfs to Demon Hunter, it still couldn't. They even buffed Paladin. They even buffed it. We had Libram of Justice go from 6 mana to 5 mana, and then they had Aldor Tenet go from a 2 mana 2/3 to 1 mana 1/3. Even with that, Paladin was still awful. It still wasn't competitive. It was like tier 4 at best, maybe low tier 3, but it just wasn't a viable competitive deck until Scholomance hit. What happened in Scholomance? Well, a lot of stuff changed for Paladin. Initially, right out the gate, it wasn't that great. Druid was just the king with 7 mana guardian animals, and Kael'thas unnerfed. It was just a really powerful thing that Paladin could keep up with. Once the first wave of nerfs happened and Penflinger and Broom was discovered to be really good in Paladin, people moved away from that whole pure Paladin package, that pure Libram Paladin package, and went to a Libroom Paladin package, which just what is kind of what we see, not quite to this day. Broom's kind of gone, but it was like the dominant Libram archetype until the end of the year, until the rotation year. Also, there was a ton of good support introduced in Scholomance for Paladin. Just to list a few, this is an insane amount of cards that Paladin got. But first day of school, ridiculous. Their early game, super consistent now. You always have a good 1 mana play. That was a problem. Like you only had the 1/1 drop. Well, yeah, first day of school, which is absurd. Argent Braggart saw a lot of play. Basically could be a 2 mana 7/7 10/10 depending on the board state. It could be really powerful. 52 shields, I mean, just look at the stats. Divine Shield Spellburst, ridiculous. Lord Barov, one of the best clears ever. Blessing of Authority, a 5 mana 8/8 buff. Devout Pupil, Sunwalker, but better. And then as I mentioned, the animated Broomstick, Penflinger, neutral options, but have been a staple in that deck for a very long time. And as a result, after all the balance patches and everything going on, Libram Paladin was basically tier 1, as you can see on the Vicious Syndicate report here, at the end of the expansion, with only maybe Soul Fragment Demon Hunter really being contesting it as the top deck of the time. Then move on to Darkmoon Faire, where Paladin got some more support, but not quite the absolute ridiculous support. I mean, they wanted Paladin to be good. They made it good. It went from being the worst to really good, but it got some more stuff. You had Hammer of the Naru, High Exarch Urel you could put into the pure Paladin stuff. Didn't push it over the top. The Libram stuff still was better. And Red Scale Dragon Tamer, which ended up coming into the Cheese Paladin deck, which came out during the mini set due to Crab Rider. Crab Rider just gave this whole Cheese Paladin archetype a really good like mid-game like rush mechanics, all that, and that deck kind of broke the game for a little bit, and then it was nerfed really quickly when Hayabessa Laura was nerfed. So again, Paladin was kind of breaking the game. Allura had like a 90% win rate on the coin in Mulligan. It was absurd, but quickly got nerfed. But Libram Paladin still stayed as one of the top tier decks. I even crafted it all golden because I was enjoying it quite a bit. And Paladin had gone from the worst to basically close to being the best by the end of the rotation year. It did so well. And now we move on to the Forged and the Barons, where we're at right now. Standard rotation occurred yet again. And unlike a lot of classes, Paladin didn't really lose a heck of a lot. The card that was like the most prominent was like Salat's Pride, right? It was a 3-mana 3/1 minion that would draw 2 1 health minions from your deck. That was basically all they lost. They lost Blessing of Wisdom as well, which was good with Crab Rider, but they gained even more stuff. They were already really good, and they gained an amount of stuff in the expansion. They got the secret package, all these secret cards, which have been incredible, including the weapon, which we'll get to and talk about. Knight of Anointment, the new mana, 1-mana 1/1. It's a Novice Engineer that tutors for 1 mana. Ridiculous. Carry-Out Ram's done very well. The Watch Posts, the neutral Watch Posts that fit in extremely well in the Paladin, as well as the new Kazakis that's used as an option in some Libram Paladin decks as well. But there, you already saw how well Paladin was performing after rotation or before rotation, and they got all this insane stuff, including the Paladin weapon. The Paladin weapon has like one of the highest win rates in the Mulligan period, and now we're at a point where if you look at the stats on HS Replay, you look at the stats on Vicious Syndicate, Paladin is basically at Ashes of Outland, Demon Hunter level of power. It is so unbelievably good. And the main talk has been Deck of Lunacy. I've been guilty of that myself, mainly because that deck is so spectacular in its high roll. It makes you feel so helpless in its high roll that it just destroys you, whereas Paladin just beats you consistently with the cards in their deck because it's so good. You have Oh My Yogg as well as a secret I didn't even mention that you now cheat out, and it's incredibly good. It was a card that wasn't really played very much before this expansion, but that's because of the Paladin weapon, which is just an absurd card. It's an absurd card. It draws 3, it plays 3, it thins your deck of all this garbage. It makes your minions almost impossible to remove. You activate your spider tank that draws a card. It's just, the whole Paladin package is just such an amazingly well-oiled machine. And if every deck was like that, I think Secret Paladin wouldn't be that big a deal right now, or the secret package in Paladin wouldn't be that big a deal, but no other deck operates at this efficiency other than maybe Rogue with its like Field Agent card draw engine, which is incredible, but no other class can really do this. Mage is doing well because they have an absolute ridiculous scam. They have that scam in Deck of Lunacy. Other than that, I don't think Spell Mage package would compete with this at all. These still lose. Mage still loses to Paladin on average despite the Deck of Lunacy stuff, so Paladin just is such a well overtuned, insane deck that it's just at a point where it needs to be dialed back in. We know there's nerfs coming to Paladin. I anticipate the weapon will get nerfed. I think Penflinger will no longer go face, and I don't think anything else will probably get hit. And as a result, I think Paladin will likely still be a tier 1 ridiculously good archetype. But if Penflinger's taken back, the weapon's taken back, maybe it'll be within reason. And there's no reason why Paladin can't be tier 1. There's no reason why it shouldn't be a really good deck. I have the same argument like, why don't you nerf Refreshing Springwater and Mage? Because I'm like, well, it's a strong card. It makes Mage strong. But as long as it's strong and not broken, I think that's fine. There's a debate whether Springwater's broken or not. And there's definitely merit to arguing that. But I'd like to see how it performs without Deck of Lunacy. And with Paladin, I think you scale back the weapon, you scale back Penflinger, and see how things play out. They're incredible early game. Paladin just never loses the board, and that's not really going to change. That weapon is still good with 2 durability, which is what I think it'll get nerfed to, and they still have Aldor Tenet, they still have First Day of School, they still have Knight of Anointment, they still have all these incredible early game minions that are going to lock out pretty much every other early game deck for the most part. As it stands, that's just how Paladin has become so good. It's basically all this insane early game has just created this culmination, this accumulating effect of just broken early game where Paladin, if they have early game with their buffs like Hand of a Doll and stuff like that, you just can't beat them. It's almost impossible, and that's basically where we're at. So we'll have to wait and see what the nerfs are, or what I expect them to be with the weapon and Penflinger and maybe the Watch Post. Do you think Paladin needs a huge dialing back, or do you think just a couple nerfs might dial it back? Because people love to play Paladin. It's a fun class to play, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be powerful, but it's interesting to see how from a class can go from being the absolute worst to the absolute most broken class within 1 year just through, well, some brute forcing of some pretty ridiculous cards. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. Stay salty, my friends.